The DJI drone ban is definitely coming. The question is, should you sell or buy before it's too late? And if you already own a DJI drone or you're thinking about buying one, well, this might be your last chance. In this video, I'm going to give you the detailed forecasted analysis so you'll know how to make the correct decision, and you're going to get all of that right here. Let's go. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is Mike Sytes, and today I want to talk about what's really happening with DJI drones. And just to be clear, as of right now, there is no official outright DJI ban on drones coming into the United States. As most of you know, you can still get DJI drones. The DJI Mini 5 just came out, and there are people in the United States who are receiving them from other sources, but not directly from DJI, since DJI has decided not to distribute to the United States. Now, to recap what happened previously before, Congress passed a law requiring a national security review of Chinese drones. This must be completed by December 23, 2025. And if that security audit is not completed by that date, then DJI would face an automatic ban because they would be immediately put on the FCC's covered list. And that would block any quote-unquote new DJI drones from being imported or sold in the United States. Now, the drones that are already here in the United States, meaning the ones that are already made it before the December 23rd ban, there has been no word or any indication that we would not be able to fly our drones as usual or as normal as we were flying them before the actual ban took place. But there are other factors to consider, such as, will the firmware updates still continue, or will they discontinue the firmware updates for all of our DJI drones? That's a very good question. And you can't help but compare this to the Huawei phone ban that occurred in 2019 when the US government banned Huawei from doing business in the United States. Now, this is a very critical comparison and analysis because the US retailers stopped selling Huawei devices almost immediately, overnight. Google pulled any support. There were no more Android or Google Play services for Huawei phones, and global partnerships, software updates, and App Store access were immediately cut out. Now, this is a very clear comparison, and is also a main focal point for concern in regard to the DJI drones and the up-and-coming ban that will occur. And you notice that I am not questioning the ban. I know that it's going to happen. Listen, let me give you a comparison or an analogy. Let's say you met someone and you set up a date, so that way they had to meet you somewhere at 2:30, and you're on your way over to where you scheduled the meet, and you keep texting them, asking them to confirm, so that way you know that they're going to be there, and they never respond. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that they're not coming. This is what's going on with DJI. You see, if they have not done the security audit by now, then they're not going to do it. And it's even more obvious and becomes apparent when you have companies like Skydio who are lobbying for this thing, making sure that they push enough so that it does not happen. But going back to the Huawei critical comparison, you see, the phones still worked, but with no updates or app ecosystem, they quickly lost value and usability. Essentially, the phone's resale value completely tanked. I mean, sank all the way to the bottom. Now, let's talk about the critical comparisons for DJI drones 2025 possible ban, right? Or probable ban. Question, could this have the same tanking or sinking effect as the Huawei situation? Well, let's talk about it. When the ban goes through December of 2025, there will be no more new drones for DJI that will be allowed to be entering into the United States. Importing or selling will be blocked. Number two, firmware updates. Well, that support may get disrupted in the same way that Huawei's did. It's more than likely that you will no longer be able to install updates into your drones or into your remote controllers. Number three, retailers here in the United States already have stock shortages. And this is not just about drones. This is about parts, propellers, batteries. It's very similar to what happened to Huawei with that all of a sudden pullback. But here's the saving grace. The impact seems similar, but the results may be completely different. Unlike Huawei's situation, the existing drones here in the United States will still be flyable, whereas Huawei Huawei had the apps or the software that was not working, our existing DJI drones will still have the firmware that will allow it to fly properly and function and operate efficiently. This is one key major difference in the situation between Huawei and DJI. The second main concern is a little tricky, and this has to do with the resale value. Now, if you have a newer drone that already has the current firmware updates, then it's possible that you may see a spike in the resale value of that drone once this ban goes through. But on the other hand, if you have an older drone that does not have current firmware updates, or those firmware updates have been discontinued by DJI, then you may see a drop in value because no updates or repairs are available. It's kind of like having an iPhone and comparing an older iPhone to a newer iPhone. Well, the older iPhone, where the updates were discontinued 5 years ago, the resale value is not going to be worth as much as the new iPhone that you got that already has the current firmware installed. So with this basic information that I've already given you without any analytics for you to try to figure out whether or not you should keep the drone that you have right now or sell the drone based on the age of the drone, or just go and get a brand new drone from DJI before it's unavailable before December 23rd of 2025. And I don't mean get it from DJI, I mean get a DJI drone from another distributor. And the question still stands, should you get a new DJI drone? Should you buy one? Or should you just keep the current DJI drone that you already have? That is a question that all of us need to consider separately and individually. So what do we need to do now? Well, we need to discuss this. We need to plan a strategy that is centered around a decision that we're going to make now, not 2 months from now when the ban occurs in December. A strategy that is now concerned or centered around a question. And the question is, should you sell or buy a DJI drone now? This question that I just asked cannot be answered the same exact way by every single person. Let me break this down for you. If you're a professional and you use a DJI drone in commercial work to make money, and you're relying on the reliability of this drone, then it's imperative for you to have enough parts and supplies to make sure that if anything breaks, that you'll be able to replace that in the event that those parts are not available after the 2025 December ban. I have received emails from remote pilots flying for agricultural work, and the one word that they have mentioned over and over again is stockpile. That is a very significant word to use when it is about protecting your business and your assets, and you know that there is a potential that the security of that business may be compromised. Stockpile. Get as many parts as you can before the ban goes through, so that way you won't have to worry about trying to get those parts when they absolutely will not be available, or they may not be available quickly enough so you can get them in as fast as possible. Now, the reason that you see me taking this firm approach is because this is the worst case scenario. You must have a plan of action or a strategy before the 2025 ban, so that way you won't be left out in the cold, or should I say you won't be left in the water without a life raft. Now, in the case where you're flying your drone for fun, then you really don't need to be concerned about stockpiling. All you need to be concerned about is that the current condition that your drone is in, that you'll be able to fly that drone recreationally without needing to upgrade that drone within the next few years. And hopefully before that time that the United States would have already figured out how to build a technologically advanced drone without having you paying $15,000 to go get it. Now, if you're flying an older DJI drone, either recreationally or commercially, well, you may want to consider selling it before the resale market gets flooded and then it tanks all the way to the bottom where the actual amount that you're going to get back is zero. I've seen situations with drones that had no technical or software support, no firmware updates available, and they tanked so much that you couldn't even sell them if you wanted to. But of course, you already know I'm not talking about DJI drones. I'm talking about the American-made drone that I have sitting in the closet. Now, alternatively, let's look at the bigger picture here. DJI is not the only drone manufacturer out there. We have Autel, we've got Skydio, we've got Parrot, a lot of drone manufacturers out there. But we're specifically focused on discussing DJI right now because the majority of the drones that are owned and operated within the United States and all over the world for that matter are DJI drones. But I would be remiss, in all fairness, not to mention the other drone manufacturers also. Let's talk about two other concerns that may stimulate the decision in regard to whether we should sell or buy. Restrictions to commercial drone operations or restrictions to recreational drone operations. Those are two things that we need to consider in this equation also. So let's do a quick forecast or tentative prediction for what may happen if recreational flyers have some restrictions or some requirements. For example, something that you may or may not have heard before. What if the drones that you're flying now have to have a requirement that they must be able to sense other manned or unmanned aircrafts that are in their vicinity? And some of you are probably perked up right now because you're beginning to understand that what we can do and what we can't do, restrictions and requirements, all boil down to a matter of political and economic control. Currently, the drones that we fly under the Code of Federal Regulations 14 CFR Part 107 mandate that all drones must be equipped with remote ID and must broadcast remote ID at all times. But that remote ID does not sense when another manned or unmanned aircraft is within its vicinity, and this is coming in regard to the new Part 108 rules and regulations, which really in essence don't have anything to do with the current Part 107 rules and regulations, but it would be interesting to see how those new proposed rules will bleed over into Part 107 rules and regulations. So we really don't know who is going to have quote unquote control over making these types of decisions. Now let's talk about commercial drone pilots with requirements and restrictions, and how does that affect our decision-making process on whether we should sell or buy. Commercial pilots, in my evaluated opinion, will be the most susceptible when it comes to these changes in requirements and restrictions. Let me give you my thoughts about why I think this could be a concern. You see, if DJI drones are banned from the United States, that also may affect certain waivers or commercial operations, and that could lead to a domino effect when we're talking about particular DJI industrial or enterprise type drones, and they may flag those drones, limit their approvals, which could lead to them forcing the remote pilots to shift over to alternative brands of drones, more than likely the United States, or should I say American-made drones, right? And that would logically and predictably lead to the economic change where it would be more expensive to conduct commercial operations. So you see how all of these things play into actually trying to figure out whether or not you should sell now or buy now. These are very important decisions, and I wanted to bring all of these to the table so that way you have some sense of preparation in regard to what's coming, what may happen, or what will happen. So in closing, let me give you a call to action. Post your comment now. What would you do in this situation? What would be your plan or your strategic move to either sell or buy your DJI drone before the 2025 ban? And just so you know, I do have a DJI Mini 5 Pro that will be here in a few days. I am doing a full-fledged video on that drone, and as you can see, I've already made strategic decisions to make sure that I have enough DJI gear and equipment and parts that will last for several years of commercial flight and recreational enjoyment. I think that you will also find that coming up with a plan of action that's suitable for you before this ban occurs will alleviate you from all of the stress that's involved when you're trying to make a rushed decision. Post your comment. I will have more videos on this topic before December, and until then, I will see you all on the next video.